Hi, this is Mike Ellick, and what I have right now is the Argus A2B. This is a low-cost 35mm camera made between 1939 and 1950, originally costing, I believe it was $12.50. This camera was definitely aimed toward amateurs, and that's all right because Argus certainly knew who its customer base was. This camera features a collapsible lens, and to extend the lens, it's really a spring-loaded collapsible lens. So you turn the lens, it pops out, then you turn it again, and it locks into place. There were several types of lenses available for this model, including one that focused. This, however, is a non-focusing model. We generally refer to this as a fixed focus camera. For being a very simple camera, this has a fairly wide range of apertures, but a very limited number of shutter speeds. And the shutter speeds are T, B, and let's see, I think that's 25, 50, 100, and 150. So that would be known as a 4-speed shutter, or 6 speeds if you count B and T. On the top are just a couple of very simple controls. One is a small device that you use to both rewind the film and to advance the film to the next shot. You have your frame counter right here. This is what's known as an extinction meter. However, I am missing the small sliding scale. There's the viewfinder on the back and your advance knob. And how do you know it's your advance knob? Because it says wind. On the bottom is your tripod socket and your rewind knob. I'm surprised it doesn't really say rewind. Sort of wish it did. Many of the American cameras from this period use this shape where it's semi-rounded on the front, or with rounded corners on the front and very flat across the back. I know that I think the Buccaneer used a similar type of arrangement, and also the Detrola, some of the Detrola models from Detroit. Of course, Argus was based in Ann Arbor, Michigan, and Argus still makes cameras. Of course, I should say Argus still sells cameras. They don't actually make any cameras. They probably stopped making cameras maybe in the 1960s. This is a pretty nice quality camera. It's plastic, most likely Bakelite. Let's take a look at some of the controls of the camera. This is your shutter release. There's no double exposure prevention, so you can take 4, 5, 1, 100 frames on 100 photos onto one frame if you like. What you do is you take your pointer and you move it toward your desired shutter speed. You frame your shot, and to take your photo, you just merely press down on this lever and you'll be able to hear the shutter release. This has a coated lens, and not only does it say the word coated, but if you hold it at an angle, you can see the blue or purplish reflection, and that is always the sign of a coated lens. As you can see, made in USA, and this is an f4.5 Cintar. Is it a Cintar? It doesn't say Cintar, but it most likely is. To load film into the camera, you have to open the back, so take this small leather tab and just pull open. On the back, you have a piece of foam that keeps the 35mm cartridge in place, and you have your pressure plate. The pressure plate keeps the film flat as it travels across the what we call the film gate. There are no rails, so the film actually travels between these two, well, rails. I guess you could say. It doesn't travel on top though, it travels between them. These are your Sprocket Wheels. As you can see, they stop at a certain point. And to move to the next frame, you push this in and advance your film, and then you can get to the next frame, and it will always increment your counter by 1. To load film into the camera, you pull down the rewind knob, or you could just push this post. Take your fresh roll film, hold it in place, and push up on the rewind knob while turning, and you'll feel it slip into place. When it is in the correct position, the knob should be flat against the body. Now comes the more difficult part. You can see that there is a small slot, a very small slot in the take-up spool. And what you have to do is you have to take your film and push it through that very thin slot. It might take you You might get it on the first try. It might take you 1 or 2 times to get it right. All right. Now, I've actually run this film through this particular camera once or twice. Pull out the film, make sure it engages in the sprockets right here. Once it does and it feels secure in the take-up spool, replace your back. Now remember, with the back, this little piece hooks onto the right side and push it forward till it snaps into place. Did that didn't go. It sounds like it did, but it didn't. Because you don't want that to happen when you're taking photos. You don't want the back to pop off. So once again, we'll hook this onto the side and we'll close this. Ah, yes, hear that snap? You want to take 2 blanks and you do that by, in this case, I'm going to cover the lens. Actually, I don't need to cover the lens. I just need to advance the photo, or advance the film. So I'll set my frame counter to -2, of course. So it's good. That's all right. It's going to be 2 before 0. And I'm just going to push that inward toward the viewfinder housing. You see how that increments it. Now I'm going to do that again. And you'll see it goes to number 1. Yes, you see how that moved to number 1? Now it really was on frame 8. So, but in reality I should turn that back to 1. There we go. All right, so we're going to wind and wind and wind. And as I mentioned, because there is no focusing involved, you just set your shutter speed, your aperture, and then take your photo. Don't forget, when you're finished, you can collapse the lens. You turn it to the left. Make sure these small little tabs clear this bar right here. So turn it to the left, maybe 1/8 of a turn, push inward, turn it back to the right. The little bars will hold the lens in place. Remember, if you take photos like this, they're going to be out of focus because your lens is not in the correct position. So just remember, extend the lens before you take any photo. And you'll hear it snap into place. So I'll show you that again. Turn to the left to release the lens. It'll pop out. Turn right again to lock it into position. There. Now, after you've taken all your photos, to remove the film, all you do is you take this small button again, you push it toward the viewfinder, and you hold it while you turn the rewind knob in the direction of the arrow. And it will be very stiff, but just keep turning and turning and turning until you can't turn anymore. At that point, pull the back off the camera, pull down on the rewind knob, remove your film, and you might have to pull the film out of the slot from the take-up spool. And this is the Argus A2B, a small 35mm camera made from 1939 to 1950.